A growing backlash is erupting over an AI-generated social media Indigenous host, with critics warning the viral wildlife account crosses ethical lines and exposes how AI can displace real Indigenous voices online. For more, let's head to the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. We're joined by Dr. Karen Sutherland from the University of the Sunshine Coast. Great to see you as always. How is AI changing the way that identity and authenticity are presented on social media? Talk to us about this case.
It means that the AI-generated video is becoming so good that it's making it hard for people to discern between what's real and what's not. That means that anyone can be anything or anyone, and this is what's happened in this case. So a man from South Africa living in New Zealand has built an audience of over 200,000 people doing wildlife content, but the character is AI-generated, Australian Indigenous. He hasn't disclosed that as well, like openly. The transparency has not been there at all. And it crosses so many ethical guidelines and boundaries, and it's wrong on so many levels.
Yeah, it reminds me of that film Roger Rabbit, where you've got the real life characters and the cartoon generated characters there as well. But the difference there being that it's really clear what is cartoon, what is fake, and what, of course, is real. But when it comes to AI generation, it is getting harder and harder to be able to tell, because so much money is being spent by tech titans so that we can't tell the difference.
That's right. And this account as well even went so far as to filter out comments that said this is AI generated. So it was doing whatever it could to stop that transparency, even when other people were calling them out on it, which is a real concern. And according to reports about this particular account, there was no engagement or consultation with the Indigenous community, and it was just some guy deciding, I'm going to do this, and then just went out and did it and tricked people who were following them. But it's just very disrespectful as well. Yeah,
I think that's the key there, disrespectful. And just talk to us, the term digital blackface, what does it mean in this context?
It's very similar to the term blackface, where someone of Caucasian descent is posing as a black person or someone from an Indigenous background. People have been called out before by doing it in person and dressing up for costume parties and Halloween and things like that. But this is the digital equivalent, because this guy is not from the Indigenous community, yet he's creating content as though, and he's created this AI-generated character to pose as being from that community, even though he has no affiliation at all with that community. So I think that's what that term is meaning.
Karen, where do we draw the ethical line between education, entertainment and exploitation, do you think? Because, as we say, there are some who would look at this and say it's harmless. There are others who say this is exploitation and misleading as well, and it impacts a business's credibility and authenticity. But where is the line, and is it difficult at the moment for people to know where it is? Or is it, as you mentioned, when you're deleting comments where people are saying this is AI generated, you clearly know you're doing something wrong?
It's a really blurry line. What I think in this case, the person behind it was actively trying to trick people watching it into believing that this was a real character, and that in itself is unethical. But what is really hard with social media and AI is that it's coming down to your own personal ethics. And there's no laws around it yet to say this, you cannot do this, this is wrong. But I guess what is in this case, which is really upsetting, is that if this guy was monetizing the account, like, he's actually earning money off pretending to be something that he's not. There's so many different sort of ethical areas that are grey around this, but there's no real sort of legislation yet as a consequence to penalise people who are doing this.
Yeah, it's interesting because when it comes to Aboriginal artwork, Indigenous artwork, there's been a lot of debate about that, particularly when it comes to fake artwork, as in white people who are faking Indigenous art and selling it as that. We have seen case after case of that, and this kind of falls into that category, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And also in the context of AI, there has been a lot of pushback on AI. Models are trained on other people's work by default, and this is including First Nations artwork, and as well as writing and creativity has been put in to AI to also train these models, and that's completely unethical as well.
All right, let's move on. A groundbreaking move, ChatGPT expanding access to its powerful AI tools in the United States, a new subscription model, and while also preparing to test ads that prioritize user privacy and trust. This is starting to sound a lot like Google, and a lot like the reason people like ChatGPT is that it doesn't come up with all of the ads in Google. Is this a way to try and get people to subscribe, to pay for ChatGPT and to pay for all of the infrastructure and the huge costs associated with implementing data centers and AI that we've seen by these tech companies? Will it work, or will it force current users, free users of ChatGPT, to go try some others like Grok or Gemini?
I think yes and yes to answer all of those questions. So clearly, OpenAI needs to make money. This has been on the cards for a long time, the whole advertising thing. They started like an advertising division ages ago to plan for this. And so they're rolling this new model out, this new subscription tier out to 171 countries, where it will also include things like image generation and memory and all the things that you had to pay for before. And so those people on the lower tiers and the free version will be served ads. At the moment, they're only rolling it out in the USA, but I'm sure they're just testing it at the moment. It is going to come to every country for sure. And so, yes, they've got everyone pushed into a corner. So either you are going to be served ads, so they're going to get money from the advertisers and businesses, etc., to place ads on the platform. And so if you can't afford the subscription or only the low subscription, then you'll be served the ads, they get ad revenue. And then if you don't want that, then you'll pay for higher tiers, and so they'll also get that money too. If you're thinking about it from a marketing perspective and business perspective, it's pretty clever, but it's not so great for us.
I wonder what it does to credibility of these platforms. For example, if I type in best hotels in Thailand, because I'm thinking of going to Thailand, into Google, it takes me a long time to get through the ads before I see some independence. And it now makes me think of Google as an ad platform simply, rather than a search platform, which is for me. That's despite the fact that I am a subscriber to many of Google's platforms, both work and personally. Does ChatGPT lose that confidence as a result as well if it starts serving up ads which are relevant to what you've searched for and asked for?
Maybe. What they're saying is, they had sent out a media release out last week, what they're saying is that the actual responses that are generated from ChatGPT when you're searching on there will not be affected with advertising information, but the ads will appear above. So I think you'll still get your response, but then you'll be served ads above that as options that you can click through to. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I think it'll reach a point where we're just expecting them to be there if we don't want to pay for them not to be there. So there'll be that option not to have it, but you have to pay for it. So it'll be interesting to see then how long it will be before our responses may also be a little tainted with advertising as well. But let's hope it doesn't get to that, and it just relies on the information it's been trained on at the moment, rather than paying to be able to pop up. But that all comes into sort of AIO and things like that, where you have to build your credibility in other places on the internet. So then when you are searching for something, you'll pop up in those written generated responses.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see whether they're able to maintain that user trust while integrating ads into ChatGPT. It will also be interesting to see the impact that it may have on CPMs. Everyone seems to be chasing ad revenue these days. Maybe it might push down the cost for business of actually advertising, which could be good. Appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you soon.